Over the last few months, Gholdengo EX has cemented itself as a meta threat. And post-rotation, Gholdengo, despite losing a number of pieces, is gaining a number of pieces as well, and it looks to maintain its footing as one of the stronger decks in the competitive meta. I'm Jet from inthirdperson.com. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's continue our post-rotation previews with Gholdengo EX. By the way, if this is the first one you've watched, I've done a number of post-rotation previews, including Charizard, Dragapult, Raging Bolt, Gardevoir, and then a number of decks that aren't looking so hot post-rotation. So subscribe to my channel and check out those videos after you watch this one. Gholdengo EX actually loses quite a bit to rotation. Losing Radiant Greninja loses its way of getting energy into the discard pile while also drawing cards, and also giving it access to a snipe attack when paired with Palkia V-Star, where that Star Portal can power up Radiant Greninja or Palkia itself, which was a pretty decent attacker in the early game if Gholdengo wasn't able to set up fast enough. We also have Pokestop, which was a great way of getting items from your deck. We have Manaphy protecting the bench, that's all gone. And then a number of secondary pieces here, Heavy Ball, Canceling Cologne, Lost Vacuum. Irida is also a loss here, where that lets you grab a water Pokemon plus an item card, and that was really handy as well. And despite all of those losses, Gholdengo is still looking incredibly strong because at its core, Gholdengo itself is just such a strong card, and there are a number of different support pieces in the current card pool that the deck can just simply adapt, and it adapts in a number of different ways. This tier list from Pokekabook might be a bit old by the time you watch the video, but it is the newest one at the time of this recording. This is a tier list comprised of decks that have made top 16 in Japanese tournaments in the week of February 3rd to February 9th, and Gholdengo made up 8.7% of all decks that got top 16, making it the third most popular deck in top 16s and a very strong choice in the post-rotation format thus far. We'll start things off with the closest thing I could find to a vanilla list. Gholdengo gets paired with all sorts of other stuff, and it's never played as just Gholdengo, which is fine. And this is the closest one I could find to vanilla, where we have the Gholdengo EX, very thick 3-1-4 line. It's basically 4 Gimme Ghouls and 1 Gholdengo. And of course, Gholdengo, just an incredibly strong attacker. Make It Rain does 50 damage for each energy card you discard this way, and this can potentially one-hit KO everything in the game. And then on top of that, its coin bonus ability is a built-in draw engine where you can just draw a card if Gholdengo is on the bench, and you can draw 2 cards if Gholdengo is in the active. So at its core, despite losing a whole bunch of pieces, Gholdengo as a card in and of itself is awesome. This build pairs it with a thin Togekiss line with a only 1/1/1 count, and we're using it for that Wonder Kiss ability where if your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out, you flip a coin, and if heads, you take an extra prize. Being able to take that extra prize here and there, and granted, it's on a coin flip, so it's not guaranteed, but taking that extra prize or couple of prizes here and there can dramatically change the complexion of a match and tip the scales in your favor. Monkey Dory serves multiple purposes in this deck. Its Adrena Brain ability allows you to move 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon when this has dark energy attached to it. So this can allow you to heal your Gholdengos or whatever for a little bit. It also helps you soften up some bigger targets, making it a little easier for Gholdengo to take those KOs. And on top of that, this is a little bit of Badoo defense as well, where 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to Badoo just knocks out the Badoo, and you get a free prize while also getting that item locking threat out of here. This build and most of the builds we're going to look at today use Energy Search Pro. I personally love this card in Gholdengo, as the A spec lets you search your deck for any number of basic energy cards of different types, reveal them, and put them into your hand, and that allows you to just get this massive grip of cards really early in the game, giving you one-hit KO power from the onset. And then from there, getting the energy back with superior energy retrieval is a lot easier than digging it out of the deck in the first place. So Energy Search Pro is definitely my preferred A spec. One new card to note here is Levincia Stadium. This is one that we're going to see in a lot of different builds. Lets you grab 2 basic lightning energy cards from your discard pile into your hand, giving you a little extra energy recovery, making it a bit easier to get those cards back, the energy cards back into your hand, making your follow-up attacks after that Energy Search Pro one a little more potent. This second take on a Togekiss build has a thicker line of Togepi and Togekiss, though it does not have the middle evolution in there, so we have some rare candy to compensate, but we also have a thin 1/1 line of Scizor, where its Punishing Scizor's attack does 10 damage plus 50 more damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon in play that have an ability. This isn't going to work against every deck. Not every deck has a ton of Pokemon with abilities, but a lot of meta decks do, and you can punish them really bad with a potential one-hit KO on a multi-prize Pokemon with this single prize Scizor. The most popular way to play Gholdengo these days is with Dragapult. This is a deck I've started seeing this build gain in popularity. I actually haven't had a chance to play it yet, but you can play it in a number of different ways. This one is a primarily Gholdengo focused one because we've got a thick 2/2/4 line of Gholdengo EX as our primary attacker, but then we also have access to the Dragapult line, which means we have Drakloak as a draw engine, letting you look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one into your hand, put one at the bottom, and then we even have access to a snipe attack in Dragapult EX. Phantom Dive does 200 damage and then 6 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon in any way you like. Now, it's gonna take a bit to set up the Dragapult. We don't have anything to cut down that energy cost like a Sparkling Crystal, so we are primarily meant to use Gholdengo as the primary attacker there. But Gholdengo is pretty easy to build up with just 1 energy, and if it tanks a hit, now you have time to put either a Psychic or a Fire energy on a Dragapult so you can get that queued up for a future turn. Having that combination of a heavy hitter in Gholdengo and a bench sniper in Dragapult can be an incredibly powerful combination. The second take on a Gholdengo Dragapult deck evens things out a little bit. We've got a 3/3 line of Gholdengo instead, and then a 3/3/2 line of Dragapult. And we are making a little bit of room for a Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon. This is a powerful walling Pokemon that can't get hit by any Pokemon that has an ability. There are certain games that you might just win because your opponent doesn't have an attacker that can actually hit through Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon, but you can also just use this to stall for time. Your opponent may be able to adapt and find some other way to hit through this or gust around it. So really, we are using this to stall for time and help get that energy for Gholdengo to pull off its big attack later, or for setting up Dragapult so it can snipe. And you can even attack with the Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon as well, where for 1 fighting and 2 colorless, Demolish does 140 damage, and this attack's damage isn't affected by weakness or resistance or by any effects of your opponent's active Pokemon, which is another good thing to note here because Gholdengo actually can't hit through a Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon or a Mimikyu, but teching this in there gives you a way of shredding through those walling Pokemon. Gholdengo already has a decent amount of draw power built in, but you can add even more with the Dudunsparce line. The Dudunsparce from Temporal Forces allows you to draw 3 cards and then shuffle the Dudunsparce and any cards attached to it back into your deck, potentially freeing up space for other Pokemon while also taking that liability off the board. And then you can just reset up a Dunsparce so that you can draw more cards with the Dunsparce later. Love this draw engine, and we have been seeing this pop up in more post-rotation lists, and I do think that the Dunsparce is going to see a lot more play once rotation happens. You can even tech in a copy of the Dudunsparce EX, where this Stage 1 EX has the attack Adversity Tail, where this does 60 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon EX in play, giving you another potential one-hit KO Pokemon that also doesn't need to have all that energy in hand, so potentially a more efficient attacker in certain situations where Gholdengo EX is just not in a position to take those big KOs. And on top of that, that Breaking Drill attack does 150 damage and isn't affected by any effects of your opponent's active Pokemon, so you can shred through things like a Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon or a Mimikyu. However, it's going to take 3 energy to do it, and we don't have any fast ways of powering this thing up. So it's not likely that we're going to be using that Breaking Drill attack too much, but it does give you a wall breaking option that Gholdengo otherwise doesn't have. I love having Fan Rotom here as well. Its Fan Call ability lets you grab 3 colorless Pokemon with 100 HP or less and put them into your hand. That's going to be our way of setting up our Dunsparces on the board. And then its Assault Landing attack is not that bad either. For a colorless, you do 70 damage if there is a Stadium in play, giving you a way of knocking out stuff like Mimikyu, or even just single prize Pokemon like a Charmander without having to put your Gimme Ghouls at risk. And this is something you can do turn 1 going second as well, which is something that Gholdengo can't really attack on the first turn outside of that coin flip attack, which isn't that reliable. But turn 1 going second, you do have a reliable 70 damage here. I mean, I guess if you have to have a Stadium in there as well, so maybe not the most reliable, but does give you something that can punch through a Mimikyu or even take out an early Badoo if you happen to go second. Here's another take on Gholdengo with the Dunsparce that also got first place at a tournament. We thin out our Dudunsparce line a little bit and substitute it with a 1-1 Scizor line for that punishing Scissors attack, where you can potentially blow up meta decks that have lots of abilities on them. We've talked about that card before, so we're not going to zoom in again. And yeah, potentially cool single prize attacker you can also use in this deck. Okay, maybe we're going to talk about Scizor again, because there are a number of Gholdengo builds that are using Scizor as its primary, secondary option. This one goes a little thicker on the Scizor line and also got first place, by the way. Congratulations to them. They have a thicker Scizor line with that 2-2, primarily using it for that punishing Scissors attack, which is going to punish decks that have a lot of abilities on them. One cool tech in this deck is Cyrano, which allows you to grab 3 Pokemon EX and put them into your hand. This can be a way of getting 3 Gholdengos, could be a way of also grabbing that Fezandipiti EX. In either case, pretty cool use of your supporter, because not only are you getting those EX Pokemon, but you also have additional draw power in the Gholdengos, and if you play this after one of your Pokemon was knocked out on a previous turn, that Fezandipiti can immediately get you another 3 cards as well. Technical Machine Evolution is a tech card in here that gives us access to that attack evolution, where for 1 colorless energy, you get to evolve 2 of your bench Pokemon up to the next step, giving you the opportunity to get your Scizor in play, or ideally 2 Gholdengos in play, so you've got that primary attacker and draw power as well. This is the first deck we're going to look at that does not have Energy Search Pro as its ace spec. And yes, there's a Klefki in here too that shuts off basic Pokemon's abilities, but the big change here is that we are running a thick line of Metal Energy as well as Unfair Stamp, where if one of our Pokemon was knocked out in the previous turn, both players shuffle their hands into their deck, you draw 5 cards, they draw 2 cards. This can be an awesome way of putting your opponent at a bit of a deficit, but I'm not sure it's worth it if you have to play just the Metal Energy, because the big problem with Gholdengo back in the day was getting enough energy in hand to take those big KOs was really tough. Once it's in the discard pile, it's really easy to recover and stack it, but without that Energy Search Pro, you kind of have to dig through it with manually or with earthen vessels and stuff like that. And I'm not sure that I want to go back to a world without the Energy Search Pro. But this is an option you can play. Unfair Stamp is a great ace spec in general, and this player did all right in their tournament. So do want to flag this as a potential option for your future Gholdengo builds. Admittedly, I thought we would see more Revavroom in post-rotation play. It's still not that popular, but we are seeing more decks starting to tech this in, including Gholdengo, which makes a lot of sense because Revavroom has the Rumbling Engine ability where you discard an energy and can draw until you have 6 cards in hand. So giving you a lot of draw power while also getting energy in the discard pile that you can recover later with superior energy retrieval for those big mid to late game attacks. Iris's Fighting Spirit is a new addition to the game coming as part of Journey Together. This lets you discard a card from your hand and then draw until you have 6 cards in hand. So sort of like Revavroom, but you can discard whatever you want, and it's on a supporter. We only have 1 copy of this here because we want to use our supporter for other stuff, but can give you a really nice boost in draw power. Should also flag here that this build doesn't use Energy Search Pro. It uses Prime Catcher as its ace spec of choice. Prime Catcher is awesome. It lets you gust an opposing bench Pokemon into the active, and then you gust one of your bench Pokemon into the active. Can really help you take out some big targets, especially if you can capitalize on Scizor being a single prize attacker, and if you can take out a multi-prize Pokemon by using Prime Catcher and setting that up. fantastic. But I'm just scared about recovering energy and getting enough energy in hand in the first place to take those big KOs. Scizor does make it a little easier as an early KO option if your opponent sets up really big early on. And we do have 3 copies of that Levincia Stadium so that we can recover lightning energy from the deck, which we have 5 of. It does freak me out a little bit not having that Energy Search Pro, but Prime Catcher is in general an amazing ace spec and quite possibly the best one in the game. Gholdengo has experimented a little bit with Dusknoir in the past. It's still not that popular in post-rotation play, but there are a couple of Gholdengo players in Japan that have seen some success with Dusknoir, including this 3rd place build. And this one has a 2-1-2 line of Dusknoir where Curse Blast allows you to drop 13 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon, though you do have to knock out the Dusknoir in the process and give them a prize. But if this allows you to take out something on the bench for a easy prize or potentially soften up something in the active so that Gholdengo can take an easier KO that it otherwise wouldn't hit, then it could be totally worth it. This last Gholdengo build gets a little silly with a card that I never thought we would see in competitive play, and I will admit there's not that many Gholdengo players in Japan that are using the Grafaiai tech, but I thought we would take a moment to acknowledge this particular build because it's kind of cool. Grafaiai has the attack Colorful Graffiti, where for 1 dark energy you can discard as many basic energy cards as you like from your hand, and it does 40 damage for each type of basic energy you discarded this way. So it's basically Gholdengo, but not quite as powerful. The multiplier is only 40 instead of 50, but if you've got all of the energy in hand, you are swinging for upwards of 320 damage on this stage 1 Pokemon, which is an amazing potential uptrade. So really cool idea, and it uses the same core mechanics as Gholdengo with that Energy Search Pro. So really nice potential single prize attacker here. Now in the mid to late game where you're trying to use superior energy retrieval to get all of those different colors, that could be kind of horrifying, but I do love this as a potential, if you're using your Energy Search Pro to grab all that energy and use Grafaiai to take out an early multi-prize Pokemon, I think that's fantastic. There we go. That is an early look at Gholdengo EX in a post-rotation format. Personally, I think it's awesome that Gholdengo continues to have its hot streak, and it looks like there's a number of different ways to play Gholdengo. So really excited to experiment with different builds and just completely, still related, but like personally, I have been trying to build a Gholdengo deck for a minute, just gradually picking up these Gholdengo cards as I see them in stores, and I got an Energy Search Pro, and looking forward to building finally in a rotation format. I'm not sure exactly which way I'm going to go with it. I'm going to look at the current cards that I have and build from there, but really excited to finally get my Gholdengo deck up and running. But for now, I gotta get going. Thank you so much for watching. You can find me on all the things: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at In Third Person. You can find me on Twitch at In Third Person, where I stream the Pokemon trading card game every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And check out the website, inthirdperson.com, for more articles and videos on video games, board games, and other nerdy pursuits. I hope you've enjoyed the post-rotation content thus far. Again, I've covered a number of different deck archetypes, including Charizard, Dragapult, Gardevoir, Archaludon, Raging Bolt, and a whole bunch of decks that aren't looking so hot. That's all on the video that says, I'm going to put the thumbnail like right here, the decks that got destroyed by rotation. And we've still got a couple more meta decks to cover. We're probably going to cover the new decks as part of Journey Together, as well as some of the weird rogue stuff that's doing really well in competitive play over in Japan. Like there's a Feraligatr deck we got to look at, among others. So subscribe to the channel and keep your eyes peeled for all of the videos that are dropping that are post-rotation related in the next couple of weeks. All right, time to get out of here. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.